They said I wouldn't be here today. They said I never amount to much of anything. But I'm glad to say that I'm on my way, and I'm growing more and more each day. See, there were many who started out with me, but now they have gone astray. But I'm still holding on. I'm still holding on. I'm still holding on to his hands. Hallelujah. I am still holding on to his hands. Hallelujah. Would you turn with me to Hebrews 6, beginning at verse 13. For when God made promise to Abraham, because he could swear by no greater, he swore by himself, saying, surely blessing I will bless thee, and multiplying I will multiply thee. And so, after he had patiently endured, he obtained the promise. Come on, look at your neighbor and say, endure for the promises of God. Come on, look at the other neighbor and say, endure for the promises of God. Come on, you got to hold on to the promises. You got to work for it. You got to fight for it. You cannot let go of God's promises. Endure for the promises of God. You may take your seats in the presence of the Lord.
Yes. Endure for the promise. Yes.
Has God ever made you a promise that seemed like it was just impossible? That it was out of reach? Too hard to obtain? Too high for you to achieve? So I wanted to talk about enduring for the promises of God. Because it is an endurance.
That's right.
If you want to obtain, you have got to endure. See, nothing in life easy. If you get it easy, you need to be careful about it. If it comes to you that easy, you need to check yourself. Because nothing that easy cannot be that good for you. If you didn't have to work for it, I'm just saying. I'm just saying. So, and I'm totally off my notes, but God, I thank you. We often quote, Jeremiah 29:11. It says, for I know the thoughts that I think towards you,
Yes.
saith the Lord. They are thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you an expected end.
Yes.
We shout about it. We get so excited when we hear about it. But when I was studying the word, you got to back up a couple scriptures to know before he said that, the people had to go into captivity for 70 years. And he told them to sit right there, go on and get comfortable, build your houses, have your children, because you are going to be here for a little while.
Come on now.
So before we get all excited about that scripture, you got to know that you're going to have to endure something before that scripture can be fulfilled. But there is a promise in the scripture that he was going to visit them. He was going to remember them. Sometimes we sit in our Babylonia, and we don't want to wait. We want to get in a hurry. We have no patience. We want to help God out. But sometimes he's got to deal with you to let you know that he is God and you are not. And that he has a plan that far exceeds your plan. And you just got to wait on it.
Amen.
And you have to do it patiently. The scripture said that Abraham waited patiently.
Yes.
And by waiting patiently, he was greatly rewarded. You see, in Genesis, I believe it's Genesis 12, God had given him a promise. He was 75 years old at that time. And it did not manifest itself completely until like 25 years later. But in the process of that waiting, he tried to help God out, or his wife tried to help God out. And then they ended up with Ishmael, a problem that they really didn't have to deal with if they would just waited on God.
That's right. That's right.
But even given that, you know, sometimes we get in the way. I know I do. I am very results oriented. I like to see things happen quickly. Type A personality. Gotta have it. Gotta be right. Gotta be the way I like it. But God don't work like that. You know, God is God. He's a limitless God. He's a timeless God. He walks in and out of time. Our little 24 hours, 365 days of the year, that don't mean nothing to God. If it takes him, what the scripture says, a day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is like a day. So if one day is 1,000 years and we trying to figure out 365 days, we got a lot of waiting to do. Because God said, I ain't even ready yet. So we have to learn how to wait and just trust in God. So Abraham, he got the promise and he got tested. You know, what do you do when you get the promise and then it's almost taken away from you? How do you trust God to know that it was for you, that it was what he said it was? How do you stand on that word to know that, okay, I trust you. I believe in you. I'm going to see what you're going to do. You okay? You know, he was challenged to kill the seed that God had promised him, that he waited for 25 years. But he didn't falter. He went up to that mountain just as confident to know that God was going to do what he said he was going to do. If Isaac was the promise and God was going to challenge him to kill his son, he had sense enough to know that God is able to raise him back up. So we have to have that type of faith, that type of endurance, to know that when we're challenged with our promise, whatever God has promised you, and you get a little bit challenged with it, you have to know that if it dies, if you let it die, if you let it slip, that God is able to resurrect it. He is able to resurrect it. So we have to learn how to patiently endure for the promise.